The stars looked like small dots from the window of Yun's research ship. She wrote notes on her datapad about the new solar system she had found. Yun was the best xenobiologist from the planet Nore. Her job was to study life forms across the galaxy. Most of these life forms were simple and not very smart. Yun brushed her long black hair away from her face and looked at the blue planet on her screen. Her ship's computer had named it Earth. It seemed like just another world with basic life. She had seen hundreds before. "Computer, show me the life form readings from the third planet," Yun said. The screen changed to show pictures of humans walking around cities, driving vehicles, and building things. Yun watched with mild interest. These creatures walked on two legs and had no special abilities she could see. They had no scales, wings, or even proper claws. Their skin looked soft and easy to damage. "So fragile," she whispered. "How have they survived this long?" The Noreans were known throughout the galaxy for their tough purple skin that could resist extreme temperatures and their ability to breathe different types of air. Humans, with their pink skin and simple lungs, seemed very weak by comparison. Yun's assistant, Jun, entered the room with more reports. Jun had been working with Yun for 5 years and shared her interest in simple life forms. "Have you seen these readings?" Jun asked, pointing at a section of data about human technology. "They have nuclear power and have visited their moon, but their ships cannot travel between stars. They are stuck in their own system." Yun nodded. "Another species that will probably die out before they reach the stars. Not worth much study." But as the days passed, Yun found herself watching the humans more and more. They were strange. They had no natural defenses but had built complex cities. They fought each other over small pieces of land, but also helped each other during disasters. They were a puzzle. After 2 weeks of observation, Yun called a meeting with her research team. "I think we should report this planet to the Galactic Council," she said. The 5 other Noreans looked surprised. "But they are primitive," said Jun. "The Council only cares about species that can travel between stars." Un showed them a video of humans building a large space telescope. "They are looking for us. They are asking questions about the universe. I think they might be different from other primitive species." The team voted, and 4 days later, Un stood before the Galactic Council on their home station. The council had members from the 12 most advanced species in the galaxy. Nore had 2 seats on the council. "Researcher Yun, you believe these humans are worth our attention?" asked Council Leader Min, an elder Norean with dark purple skin. "I do," Yun said. "They have many weaknesses, but they learned quickly. They went from simple flight to walking on their moon in less than 70 years. The council members whispered to each other. This was unusual progress for a young species. "What do you think would happen if we contacted them?" asked a council member from the silicon-based Taka species. Yun had thought about this question. "I believe they would be shocked but interested. They have many stories about meeting aliens. Some are peaceful, others are about war. They are both afraid of us and want to meet us." The council talked for hours. Un waited patiently, watching their faces. Finally, Min spoke again. "We have decided to approve a small diplomatic mission to Earth. 1 ship, 5 crew members. You will lead it, Researcher Yun." Yun felt surprised. She studied life forms but was not trained in first contact situations. "But Council Leader, I am a scientist, not a diplomat. You know these humans better than anyone." "You will go," Min said firmly. Back on her ship, Yun began preparations. The mission would take 6 months to plan. They needed to learn human languages, study their cultures, and decide where to land. Jun helped Un choose the landing site. "Their country, called South Korea, seems stable and advanced enough," he said. "And we have studied their language well." Yun agreed. "Yes, and their government has plans for how to handle alien contact. They will be surprised but prepared." As the day of departure got closer, Un became more nervous. She had studied humans for months now, but still believed they were simple, fragile creatures. How would they react to seeing real aliens? Would they be afraid, violent, or would they welcome the visitors from the stars? The night before leaving, Elon looked at Earth one more time on her screen. Billions of humans lived their lives, not knowing tomorrow would change everything. "Are you ready?" June asked from the doorway. Elon nodded. "I'm ready, but I don't think they are." "How could they be?" The next morning, Elon boarded the diplomatic ship with her team. The sleek silver craft was designed to look non-threatening. It had no visible weapons, though several were hidden inside its hull, just in case. "Set course for Earth," Yun commanded. The ship's engines hummed to life. As they flew toward the blue planet, Yun thought about what would happen. The humans would send their representatives. There would be talks, maybe some trade agreements. The humans would be amazed by Norian technology. Then the mission would end, and Earth would become just another entry in the Galactic Council's database of developing worlds. A simple mission, Yun said to herself. Nothing special. She had no idea how wrong she was. The diplomatic ship from Earth arrived on schedule. Yun stood with other Norian officials at the landing area, her purple skin shimmering in the bright orange sunlight of her homeworld. She wore her formal research uniform and tried to look confident, though she felt nervous inside. "The human ship is asking permission to land," said June, who now worked as her assistant for the diplomatic mission. Ilm nodded. "Tell them they may land. Remind them about our atmosphere. They should wear their protective suits when they exit their craft." The small Earth ship touched down gently on the landing pad. It looked primitive compared to Norian vessels. Its metal surface was scratched in places, showing signs of many repairs. "They actually made it here and that," whispered one official to another. Yun silently agreed. The human ship looked fragile. After several minutes, the door of the ship opened slowly. Yun and the welcome committee held their breath. This was the first human any of them had seen in person. A tall figure appeared in the doorway. Yun blinked in surprise. The human wasn't wearing a protective suit. He wore only what appeared to be formal Earth clothes, a dark blue suit with a small pin showing Earth's flag. "He will collapse in seconds," June whispered urgently. "Our air has 15% more nitrogen than Earth's, and our gravity is 1.2 times stronger." But the human didn't collapse. He walked down the ship's ramp with steady steps. He was tall for a human, with broad shoulders and short black hair. His skin was tan, and his eyes were dark brown. He smiled as he approached the Norian delegation. "Hello," he said in perfect Norian language. "I am Han, ambassador from Earth. Thank you for welcoming me to your beautiful planet." Yun stepped forward. "Ambassador Han, I am researcher Yun. I will be your guide during your stay." She paused, unable to hide her confusion. "But where is your breathing equipment? Our atmosphere is different from Earth's." Han smiled wider. "I trained for 6 months in special chambers that simulated Norian conditions. It was difficult at first, but the human body can adapt to many environments with proper preparation." Yun tried not to show her surprise. The human reports had not mentioned this ability. She had expected a weak creature who needed constant protection, not someone who could breathe Norian air and walk normally under higher gravity. "Very impressive," she said. "Please follow me. We have transportation waiting." Han followed Yun to a hovering vehicle that would take them to the capital city. As they traveled, Han looked out the windows with great interest at the purple-leaved trees and the tall crystal buildings that reflected the orange sunlight. "Your architecture is amazing," Han said. "On Earth, we don't build with crystal." "These aren't just for beauty," Yun explained, falling into her familiar role as a teacher. "The crystals absorb solar energy to power our cities." Han nodded. "Efficient and beautiful. We could learn from that." The vehicle stopped at the grand hall where Han would stay. Yun had selected rooms in the section designed for species with environmental needs similar to humans. "These will be your quarters," she said, leading him inside. The temperature and lighting have been adjusted to Earth standards. Han looked around the spacious room. Thank you, but actually, I'd prefer to experience Norre as it is. Could you set the room to normal Norrean settings? Yun frowned. But the temperature is 5 degrees higher than Earth's average, and our lighting is in the orange spectrum, not your yellow sun. That's fine, Han said. Part of my job is to understand your world as it truly is. Reluctantly, Yun adjusted the settings back to Norrean normal. She was certain the human would request changes by morning. The next day, Un arrived early to check on Han. She expected to find him uncomfortable or ill. Instead, he was already awake and looking at information about Norre on a datapad. "Good morning, Researcher Yun," he said cheerfully. "I slept very well. Your planet's higher gravity makes the bed feel extra comfortable." Yun couldn't hide her surprise. "You've adjusted to our gravity already." "Mostly," Han admitted. "My muscles are a bit sore, but it's manageable. Humans are quite adaptable." Yun tried to process this information. It didn't match her research about human physiology. "Today I will show you our capital city," she said. "We'll visit the Science Academy first, then the public gardens." As they toured the city, Han kept surprising Yun. He walked for hours without tiring despite the stronger gravity. He tried Norrean food without hesitation. When they passed through an area with bright yellow warning signs, Un started to warn Han to hold his breath. "This section has higher levels of sulfur dioxide," she began. But Han just nodded. "Yes, I can smell it. Reminds me of volcanic areas on Earth. It's not pleasant, but it won't harm me in small amounts." Un stopped walking. "You can detect the sulfur dioxide, and it doesn't affect you." "I can smell it," Han explained. "Humans have a decent sense of smell, and we have some sulfur dioxide on Earth too, from factories and volcanoes. I'm not saying I'd want to live in it, but walking through this area is fine." By the end of the day, Yun was confused and fascinated. Everything she thought she knew about humans seemed wrong. They weren't the fragile creatures she had expected. As they returned to the Grand Hall, Han turned to her. "Thank you for today, Researcher Yun. I have learned so much about your world." Yun nodded. "And I, it seems, have much to learn about humans." That night, Yun revised her reports about human biology. She added notes about their unexpected adaptability and resilience. For the first time, she wondered if the Galactic Council had underestimated the species from Earth. Perhaps humans were more interesting than she had thought. 2 weeks passed since Han arrived on Norre. Un watched him with growing respect. He learned their customs quickly. He ate their food without complaint. He even joined their scientists for talks about space travel. The council members were surprised by how well the human was doing. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Council Leader Min called Yun to his office. His dark purple skin looked almost black in the dim light. "The human ambassador has been invited to visit the sacred caverns," Min said. Yun felt her heart beat faster. The sacred caverns. But no outsider has ever been allowed there. The sacred caverns were the most important place on Norre. They held the ancient writings of their first people. Only Norreans with special training could enter. Even Yun had only visited twice in her life. "This is against all our rules," Yun said. Min nodded. "Yes, but some council members believe the human might be special. There are signs." "What signs?" Yun asked. "The crystals in the Great Hall glow brighter when he walks past. Some of our oldest scholars have noticed. They think it means something." Yun frowned. "Crystals respond to many things. It could be his body heat or the metals in his earth clothes." "Perhaps," Min said. "But we want to know for sure. You will take him to the caverns tomorrow." Yun wanted to argue more, but knew it would not help. "Yes, Council Leader." The next morning, Yun met Han at his quarters. She wore her formal purple robe with gold symbols, the special clothes for visiting sacred places. "We have a different plan today," she said. "We are going to visit the sacred caverns." Han's eyes widened. "The sacred caverns." Your people's most holy place. I've read about them, but I thought they were closed to non-Noreans. They are, Yun said. You are the first outsider to be invited. Han looked serious. I'm honored. I'll be respectful of your traditions. They traveled in a special vehicle across the rocky plains outside the city. The orange sun made the purple rocks look like they were on fire. After 2 hours, they reached a mountain with no plants growing on it. The sacred mountain, Yun explained. The caverns are inside. They walked to a small opening in the rock. 2 guards stood there, wearing the same purple robes as Yun. They looked surprised to see Han, but let them pass after checking Yun's special permission card. Inside, the air was cool and smelled like old stone. The walls were covered with strange symbols carved thousands of years ago. Small crystal lights in the ceiling made the path visible. These writings tell the story of our people, Yun said. They are over 10,000 years old. Han looked at the symbols with interest. What do they say? They tell how our ancestors learned to use crystal energy and how they built the first cities. They also talk about the future. They walked deeper into the mountain. The tunnel got narrower, and the air felt heavier. Yun watched Han carefully, wondering if he would struggle to breathe, but he seemed fine. Finally, they reached a large round room. The walls were covered with more symbols, and in the center stood a tall crystal pillar that reached from floor to ceiling. The crystal was clear like water, but had small points of light inside it, like trapped stars. This is the heart of Norre, Yun said softly, our most sacred place. Han stared at the crystal pillar. It's beautiful. Yun pointed to the symbols on the wall. These writings are the oldest. They tell about visitors from the stars who would one day return. As Han moved closer to read the symbols, something strange happened. The crystal pillar, which usually glowed with a soft purple light, began to shine brighter. As Han walked around the room, the light followed him. Yun gasped. The crystal, it's responding to you. Han looked confused. Is that unusual? It only responds to Noreans with special energy. It has never reacted to any other species before. Han touched the wall gently, tracing one of the symbols with his finger. As he did, the symbol began to glow with a white light. Then another symbol lit up, and another, creating a path of light around the room. Yun couldn't believe what she was seeing. This is impossible. An old Norean scholar who had been sitting quietly in the corner stood up. Not impossible. It was foretold. The scholar walked slowly to where Han stood. The ancient writings speak of star walkers who would come to Norre, beings who could wake the sleeping crystals. But we always thought the star walkers were our own people, Yun said. Our space travelers. The scholar shook his head. No. The writings say they would come from far away, with no knowledge of our ways. Yet the crystals would know them. Han stepped back from the wall. I don't understand. I'm just a human. Perhaps that is enough, the scholar said. More symbols began to glow, creating patterns on the walls. The crystal pillar now shone so brightly that it hurt Yun's eyes. What does it mean? Han asked. Yun looked at the glowing symbols, remembering her training. It tells of a time when different worlds would join together, when knowledge would be shared between the stars. The old scholar nodded. For thousands of years, we thought we were the chosen ones who would unite the galaxy. But perhaps we were wrong. Perhaps it was always meant to be someone else. Yun felt her view of the universe changing. Everything she had believed about humans, about her own people's place in the galaxy, was being questioned. Han looked uncomfortable with all the attention. I'm just an ambassador. I didn't come here to fulfill any prophecies. Yet here you are, the scholar said, waking the ancient lights. As they left the caverns hours later, Yun was quiet. Her mind was full of new questions. Are you okay? Han asked. Yun looked at the human with new eyes. I thought I understood who you were, what humans were. I was wrong. We're just people, Han said. Like you. No, Yun said. Maybe you're more than we ever imagined. The news came suddenly. June burst into Yun's office early in the morning, his purple face looking almost blue with worry. "There's a problem," he said. "A big solar flare is coming from our sun. It will hit Norway in 10 hours." Yun looked up from her reports. "Solar flares happen often. Our shield system will protect the cities." June shook his head. "Not this time. The flare is too strong. And worse, our main shield generator is broken. Engineers say they can't fix it in time." Yun felt cold fear in her stomach. Without the shields, the solar radiation would damage cities and harm people. There hadn't been deaths from a solar flare in over 200 years. "We need to tell the council," she said. The emergency council meeting was filled with worried voices. Han sat quietly in the back, listening. As an Earth ambassador, he had no official say in Norian problems. But when the chief engineer finished explaining why they couldn't fix the shield in time, Han raised his hand. "May I speak?" he asked. Council leader Min nodded. "Yes, Ambassador." Han walked to the center of the room. "On Earth, we deal with solar flares too. Our shields aren't as good as yours, so we've developed other methods." The room went quiet. All eyes were on the human. "Instead of trying to block the solar energy, we sometimes redirect it," Han explained. "We use magnetic field generators to create a path for the energy to follow, sending it away from important areas." The chief engineer, a tall Norian named Gil, looked doubtful. "Our sun's flares are much stronger than your Earth sun. A simple magnetic field wouldn't work." "Not a simple one," Han agreed. "But what if we combined your crystal technology with our magnetic field design? The crystals could amplify the magnetic power." The council members looked at each other. Using Earth technology was not something they had considered. "It's impossible," Jill said. "We would need to build new equipment, test it." "We don't have time for testing," Han interrupted. "The flare will hit in 9 hours now." Yun stood up. Something about Han's confidence made her want to believe him. "I think we should listen to him. He's proven himself worthy of trust." Council leader Min thought for a moment. "Researcher Yun, you will work with Ambassador Han on this plan. But if it doesn't seem possible after 4 hours, we must focus on evacuation instead." Yun and Han hurried to the main science building. Gil and his team of engineers joined them, still looking doubtful. "Show us your Earth design," Jill said to Han. Han drew plans and explained how Earth's magnetic field generators worked. The Norwegian engineers listened carefully but kept pointing out problems. "Our crystals aren't designed to work with magnetic technology," one engineer said. "And we would need at least 20 generators placed around the planet," another added. "We can't build that many in time." Yun watched Han's face. Most people would give up when faced with so many problems. But the human didn't look worried. "We don't need to build new generators," Han said. "We can use your existing communication towers. They already have power systems and are placed around the planet." Gil shook his head. "But they're not designed for creating magnetic fields." "They can be changed," Han insisted. "I studied your technology. The basic parts are similar to ours." For the next 3 hours, they argued and planned. Finally, Jill agreed that the plan might work. Teams of engineers were sent to the 12 largest communication towers around the planet. Han and Yun went to the main control center. As they worked, connecting computers and adjusting equipment, Yun watched Han with new respect. He worked quickly and didn't get upset when things went wrong. When one system wouldn't connect properly, he found another way to make it work. "How do you do that?" Yun asked. "Do what?" Han was focused on connecting 2 different types of wires. "Find new solutions so quickly. Our engineers are trained to follow specific rules and plans." Han smiled. "Humans had to survive on Earth with very little. We learned to use whatever we had. We call it thinking outside the box." With just 1 hour left before the solar flare would hit, they finished the preparations. The 12 communication towers were now connected to the central control system. Each tower had been modified to generate a magnetic field using crystal power. "It's time," Jill said, looking nervous. The flare is approaching. Han took a deep breath. Start the system. Jill pressed the main control button. Around the planet, the 12 towers began to hum with power. Purple energy flowed through the crystal amplifiers, creating an invisible network of magnetic fields high in the atmosphere. Everyone watched the big screen that showed the approaching solar flare. It was huge, much bigger than normal. A massive wave of deadly energy heading toward Norre. 10 seconds until impact, someone called out. Ian found herself standing close to Han. Without thinking, she touched his arm. He looked at her and nodded confidently. The solar flare hit the magnetic field network. For a terrible moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, they could see the energy changing direction. Instead of hitting the planet directly, the solar flare was being guided around Norre, like water flowing around a rock. It's working, Jill shouted, sounding surprised. The dangerous energy moved past the planet, following the path created by Han's design. The cities below remained safe. After 30 minutes, the worst of the flare had passed. The room erupted in cheers. Engineers hugged each other. Council leader Min, who had been watching silently, stepped forward. Ambassador Han, he said formally, you have saved many lives today. Norre owes you a great debt. Han shook his head. It was a team effort. Your engineers did the real work. But it was your idea, Yun said, your human way of thinking. Later that evening, as the celebration continued, Council leader Min spoke to Yun privately. Perhaps we have underestimated these humans, he said. They may not have our technology or our physical strength, but they have something else, something we might need. Yun nodded. Adaptability. Creativity. They think differently than we do. Yes, Min agreed. And that might be the most valuable thing of all. 6 months had passed since the solar flare. Un stood at the window of her new office, looking out at the blue ocean. Earth's water still amazed her. On Norre, water was precious and carefully managed. Here, it stretched as far as she could see. Yun was now the first Norrean ambassador to Earth. After Han had saved her planet, things had changed quickly. The Galactic Council had voted to offer Earth membership, something that usually took decades of discussion. Her office was in a tall building in the city called Seoul. The humans had built it specially for alien visitors, with rooms that could be adjusted for different atmospheres and gravity needs. Yun had chosen to keep her room set to Earth normal. Like Han, she wanted to understand this new world as it truly was. Ambassador Yun, your meeting starts in 10 minutes, said her human assistant, Ji. Elam turned from the window. Thank you, Ji. Is everything ready for the ceremony tomorrow? Ji nodded. Yes. All 12 Galactic Council members have arrived. The Earth leaders are prepared. It will be the biggest event in human history. Tomorrow, Earth would officially join the galactic community. Humans would be able to trade with other worlds, share technology, and travel to the stars. It was happening faster than any species before them. Elin picked up her data pad and checked her schedule. She had 5 meetings today with Earth leaders who wanted to know about life on other planets. Humans were always full of questions. As she walked to the meeting room, Elin passed the Earth Memorial to the first contact. A large picture of Han hung on the wall. Next to it was a smaller picture of Ian. Under the pictures were Han's words. Different worlds, one future. Han was now head of Earth's new Department of Galactic Relations. He worked closely with Ian to help humans understand the rules and customs of space. They had become good friends. The meeting went well. Earth's leaders were eager to learn about trading with other planets. Un explained the galactic trade rules as simply as she could. The humans asked smart questions. After the meeting, Yun had 2 hours free. She decided to walk in the park near her office. Earth parks were different from the carefully designed gardens on Norre. Earth plants grew in less orderly ways, with more colors and shapes. Yun sat on a bench and watched human children play. They ran and laughed, their small bodies full of energy. On Norre, children were taught to be calm and thoughtful from an early age. Here, they seemed wild and free. Ian found it both strange and wonderful. An older human woman sat down next to Ian on the bench. She smiled at the alien visitor. "You're the ambassador, right? I saw you on TV," the woman said. Ian nodded. "Yes, I am Ambassador Ian. My grandson wants to be a space pilot now," the woman said. "Before you aliens came, he wanted to be a doctor. Now all the kids want to go to space. Space travel is exciting," Ian agreed. "But your doctors are very important too." The woman laughed. "That's what I told him. But you know how kids are." Ian didn't know how human kids were, but she nodded anyway. These small talks with regular humans helped her understand Earth better than any official meeting. Later that afternoon, Han visited Ian's office. He looked tired but happy. "Tomorrow's the big day," he said. "Hard to believe it's only been 7 months since you first landed on Earth." "Your people were ready," Ian said. "More ready than we thought." Han looked out the window at the city. "It's changed everything. Our scientists are already working with Norian engineers on new technology. Our children are learning about other worlds in school. We're building our first real starship." "Your people learn quickly," Ian said. "The council is impressed. No other species has joined the galactic community so fast." Han turned to look at her. "Some are worried about that. I've heard that not all aliens are happy about humans joining so quickly." Ian nodded. This was true. Some older species thought humans were moving too fast, that they needed more time to develop. "Change is always difficult," she said. "But the sacred caverns show your connection to the stars. And you saved our world from the solar flare. You have earned your place." That night, Ian couldn't sleep. She stood on the balcony of her apartment, looking at Earth's moon. It was so different from Norre's 3 small moons. This one was large and bright, making the night less dark. Ian thought about how much had changed. A year ago, she had believed humans were simple, weak creatures. Now she was living on their world, helping them join the greatest alliance in the galaxy. The next morning, the ceremony was held in a large building called the United Nations. Leaders from all Earth nations sat together with the 12 members of the Galactic Council. Millions of humans watched on screens around the world. Council leader Min stood to speak. "Today we welcome Earth to the galactic community. Although humans are young compared to many species, they have shown great potential. Their ability to adapt, to think in new ways, and to work with others makes them valuable allies." Han signed the official agreement as Earth's representative. Then Min pressed his purple hand on the crystal seal, making Earth's membership official. Ian watched from her seat, feeling proud. She had been part of this historic moment. When humans had first been discovered, no one thought they would matter. Now, they were changing the galaxy. After the ceremony, Han found Ian in the crowded room. "So, what happens now?" he asked. Ian smiled. "Now the real work begins. There is so much for your people to learn, so many worlds to visit, and so much for us to share," Han added. "I think the galaxy might be surprised by what humans can offer." Ian thought about the glowing symbols in the sacred caverns, the ancient prophecy about starwalkers who would unite different worlds. "I think you're right," she said. "This is just the beginning."